Let's get it. Welcome back to another edition of the Hampton Show. Joel, how are we feeling today?
Heartbreaking right now for the Knicks because they lost. What we just saw was one of the biggest playoff collapses in the history of the NBA. As a Knicks fan, I'm devastated. As a basketball fan, if anybody is watching this series from a neutral perspective, this has been amazing.
Yeah, I still cannot believe what we just witnessed. Today, we're ranking the top 25 NBA free agents of the summer. We're revealing why Giannis took a trip to Golden State, and we're reacting to the Western Conference Finals. But first, let's start with where Joel started with his Knicks. Joel, if you need to lay down, talk to me like a therapist, you can, but just tell me your reaction from last night. Walk me through step by step how you watched your team collapse.
Part of me was thinking there was no way we would collapse because there was a minute left. We were up 9. It was 121 to 112. And I thought to myself in that very moment, are the Knicks going to blow this like the Bucks did, like the Cavaliers did? And I thought to myself, no, too many things have to go wrong. The Pacers have to hit every shot going forward. There's just no way. And then that's exactly what ended up happening. OG Anunoby couldn't catch a ball, and that ended up in a Brunson turnover. He missed a free throw. Cat missed a free throw. OG's defense was terrible. They weren't switching on these players when they set these pick and pops, and that allowed Aaron Nesmith to get wide open looks. I mean, there was nobody guarding him, and he nailed them. And this was the Aaron Nesmith game, him going off for 30 and having 8 threes. I mean, he was marvelous in this one. And I just said, there's no way. There's no way we collapse. There's no way we continue to do things the wrong way. We inbound the ball, and that gave me a mini heart attack because Josh Hart stumbles and Nembhard almost gets the steal, but then Hart's able to recover. Brunson gets trapped, and he just throws the ball. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? OG Anunoby happens to be in the vicinity, so it's caught. So many late game execution errors. The Tyrese Halliburton dagger, which I thought was going to send us home with the loss, it ended up being a 2-pointer, but my goodness, he's 12 for 14 in those situations on go-ahead shots or shots to tie the game. He's one of the most clutch players in the league. And then in overtime, our defense was getting shredded to the point that Tom Thibodeau benched Cat, put Mitchell Robinson in the game, and Mitchell Robinson allowed an offensive rebound put back to Obi Toppin and then allowed him to get a free lane to the basket with no resistance whatsoever. So you might as well kept Cat out there if Mitchell Robinson wasn't going to go out there and do his job. And in overtime, I thought Jalen Brunson was awful. I thought Jalen Brunson in the clutch of this game, he had 5 assists, but he had 7 turnovers. He was terrible. I mean, just falling on the floor, the physicality, he wasn't able to deal with it. It was just awful to watch how the Knicks collapse after playing, I would say, an amazing 47 minutes of basketball. They played awesome. Cat had a great game. Brunson had a great game. Mikal played well. Our bench played well. We rebounded well. We went on a fourth quarter run with Jalen Brunson off the bench with 5 fouls. There's no reason that we should have lost that game. So for the Knicks to lose that game was embarrassing. And it was one of the all-time epic choke jobs in the history of the NBA.
Everyone was saying after the game they were up by 17 with 6 minutes left. How about they were up by 9 with 52 seconds left? That was the inexplicable thing to me. Jalen Brunson, after coming in after the 5 fouls in his timeout, he looked absolutely exhausted. And you saw that at the end of overtime. You saw that whenever they were missing assignments defensively. Brunson badly missed that final 3 in overtime. Cat shorted it as well. The Knicks have now lost 4 of their 7 home games in the playoffs. And we can all agree that Madison Square Garden is one of the best home court advantages places in the entire NBA. And they've now lost 4 of 7 games there in the postseason. In this series that is expected to be a long series, this has to be a game you win. 98.8% chance to win with a minute left for the New York Knicks. The Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3 minutes of regulation. 23 points in the final 3 minutes of regulation. New York, like you said, kept missing assignments, and I think it has to do with fatigue because I go back to the first possession of the game where off the first Pacers made basket, by the way, who started for 8 of 8 from the field, off their first made basket, It was full court pressure the entire game. And I kind of just bookmarked it and I'm like, this is going to be interesting because Jalen Brunson, throughout the entire first half, was working extremely hard for his points. He was scoring the basketball, playing great, but he was working so hard. And I think you saw it catch up to him later in the game when they started to get pressure put on them in the final few seconds of it. My question to you now is, how do you feel about the rest of this series? Because we both have had predictions. I told you over text that I'm rooting for the Knicks. I'm not going to hide that, but I did pick the Pacers in 6 just for this reason of depth. How do you feel about the rest of the series?
I feel good. I feel confident still. I think this was a bad loss. It's an epic all-time choke job. And I'm sure Celtics fans felt the same way. Cavaliers fans felt the same way. Not Bucks fans because the Bucks were not a good team. The Knicks are a good team. Mm-hmm. I felt like we outplayed Indiana. I felt as if we could have gotten a better game from OG Anunoby. We could have gotten a better game out of Josh Hart. Jalen Brunson, I don't think the Pacers have an answer for, even with him struggling to get his baskets. I think Brunson should get whatever he wants in this series. And I will say, I didn't mind the physicality. I thought it was reciprocated on both ends. I thought the referees swallowed their whistle. At least that's how I felt watching it in the flow of the game. And Cat, there's no answer for him either. I think that Miles Turner can't guard him, Siakam can't guard him, and he should have a phenomenal series. So as long as those two guys are consistently great, I still trust the Knicks. I just think it's time for a change. Tom Thibodeau is too good of a coach to be this stubborn. The starting lineup doesn't work.
No, I'm not going to let you do this. You can't predict them to go to the NBA Finals and in the same breath say you need a new coach. You can't.
I'm not saying we need a new coach. I'm saying we need a new starting lineup.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
We need Brunson out there with Mikal, OG, Cat, and Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart needs to come off the bench.
Fair.
Tom Thibodeau has this attachment to Josh Hart for whatever reason. I love Josh Hart. He's the heart and soul of the team. But we were so much better with Deuce McBride on the floor because he can shoot the freaking ball. That's why. And he can defend better than Josh Hart. And he's going to make Halliburton work more. And I guarantee he's going to switch on the screen and make sure that Neesmith is contested from 3, even though that was OG Anunoby's fault. Fatigue could play a big factor in that. I'm not going to discount that. But overall, it was poor execution. And the starting lineup for the Knicks has not been that good this playoffs, Jack. It has not. If you look at all the advanced metrics, it would point to the Knicks starting lineup actually being below average. Our best lineup is when Mitchell Robinson is on the floor with Cat. It makes us better defensively. It makes us better offensively.
Rebounding.
I just don't understand. Exactly. I just don't understand why Tom Thibodeau is taking so long and making the necessary changes that we need.
The 7 to 8 guys deep is going to start to catch up with them too. Campaign had 2 big threes last night, but before that, he was attacked on every possession defensively, which is why he barely played 10 minutes. And I think as this series goes along and why I'm standing on the Pacers and feel even better about the Pacers in this series moving forward is that this fatigue thing just isn't going to stop. They're going to keep the ball pressure, the full court pressure. And when that builds up game after game, if game 2's a close game like this, and for Tom Thibodeau to pull out the starters, it has to be a 35-point lead, not a 25-point lead, a 35-point lead. I think as we get into games 4, 5, 6, and 7, if necessary, I think we're going to look back on game 1 and how exhausted those guys were at the end of the game and be like, oh, now I see why this matters in a 7-game series. I think for the Pacers, the Tyrese Halliburton clutch moments has not been talked about enough. Jalen Brunson won that award, but to see those two guys in a duel like this who have been so clutch in the postseason and see Tyrese be able to outduel Jalen Brunson in the clutch was very alarming to me because Tyrese Halliburton in this series last year in the second round series, there were games in Madison Square Garden where you didn't notice him on the floor. This has been a step. And I was a guy that was going to say, hey, this Pacers team, that last year run, that was a fluke. It was the Atlanta Hawks in 2021. I could not have been more wrong because Tyrese Halliburton has taken even another step than the one he took last year.
I agree with you. And I think Tyrese Halliburton is the fifth best point guard in the NBA. I think the only point guards I take over him are Steph, Brunson, Luka, and Shea. Outside of that, I'm taking Halliburton over Ja. I'm taking him over Trae Young. I'm taking over anybody else. I think the way that he uplifts his offense and the way he can play make and create for others and not turn the ball over while also being efficient from all three levels is something that gets underrated. He doesn't have the box score gaudy scoring numbers. When you look at his box score, it says 19 instead of 25.
Yes.
So people diminish his value and what he brings. But we just saw when he's at his very best and he's aggressive, he is capable of some special stuff. I mean, he was dissecting the Knicks defense. He had 31 points and 11 assists. And I said this 2-3 years ago that I think Halliburton at his very best, he's somebody that can average 25 points per night. I think he can be that good. He just has to be more aggressive as a scorer, but that goes hand in hand with the Pacers having a great team. If you have a great team and you have 10 players that can score 10 points on any night, then you don't need to go out there and score 25 a night. So it's out of necessity that he scores and has these games like this, but he showcases that when he has to step up to the plate, he's capable of doing so.
Absolutely. And I see where our friendship stands too. Because, whenever Ja Morant gets brought up, it's immediately personal to me. And, I could be twisting the knife in your chest right now, but instead you're twisting it in mine. So I see where we stand on that one. But everything you said about Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely correct. He is a top 5 point guard. Going into last night, Pascal Siakam is averaging more points in the playoffs than he was. It's probably changed after last night, but going into last night, that was a thing. And it is because Tyrese Halliburton still has those 4-point games, those 3-point games, which is why this is going to be a long series. But whenever it's in the clutch, we saw who steps up. And I don't think it was an indictment on Brunson last night. I just think that his responsibility is so much larger in the ball handling role against that pesky defense than Tyrese Halliburton's role is and how much energy he has to use throughout the game.
The point I mentioned earlier about the lineup stuff. Now, there are two options. It's either starting Mitchell Robinson in place of Hart or Deuce McBride. I'm for both. Here's an interesting tidbit. Of all the possessions in the playoffs, there's only been 16 lineups, 16 possessions where Deuce McBride has played with the starters. And there's only been 13 possessions where Mitchell Robinson has played with the starters. There has been 569 possessions of Brunson, Hart, Mikal, OG, and Cat. They have a minus 4.7 differential, a 112.8 offensive rating, which is terrible, and a 117.5 defensive rating, which is also terrible. They are not a good offensive team with Hart on the floor in the lineup. They are not a good defensive team. And with Deuce McBride, albeit 16 possessions, they're plus 37.5, 162.5 offensive rating, and 125 defensive rating. They've been awful defensively. We haven't seen enough of a sample size from Deuce or Mitch to come to a real conclusion to see if that lineup works. But we've definitely got more than enough of a sample size to see that this starting lineup with Josh Hart on the floor, we don't get good, consistent offense from it. And our defense also is not that good.
I don't know if you'd be saying this if you didn't choke in the way that the Knicks choked last night. Because, like you said, for 47 minutes of that game, it was a great performance. I understand the numbers, Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup, but I don't know if Tom Thibodeau, as stubborn as he is, views that change as the most necessary one out of all the things that happened down the stretch against the Indiana Pacers. Because I think now moving into game 2, Thibodeau will think of that as searching. If I bring a new starting lineup, that means what we did in game 1 did not work. And I don't think that's true. I think their down the stretch play did not work.
I'm not even mad at continuing to start Josh Hart. That's fine with me. It's the amount of minutes he gets. Gotcha. He got 44 minutes. He played the second most minutes of anybody on the team. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable. With the way that Deuce McBride was playing, with the way that Mitch was playing, to have that long of a leash for Josh Hart, yeah. I mean, some self-awareness is involved. It has to be involved in that decision. I mean, I know he likes Josh Hart a lot. 44 minutes and he gives you 8 points is just unacceptable.
Yep. And I think I'm looking at we're talking about free agents later in the podcast, but I'm just thinking how much money these Pacers guys are going to end up getting in the marketplace. And looking at the rest of it, I mean, Neesmith is under contract another year. All of their rotation guys are under contract for another year. And like they could run this back outside of Miles Turner. He's going to get an absolute bag. Let's move to the Western Conference Finals. Thunder-Timberwolves. What was your reaction to that? Do you envision the Timberwolves shooting a lot better from three going into game two?
My reaction to it was I think the Timberwolves, specifically Anthony Edwards, has to be much better.
Attack.
Julius Randle played his role. Julius Randle was amazing. He's been the Wolves' most consistent performer in the playoffs. Anthony Edwards has to follow suit. Maybe him twisting his ankle a little bit bothered him. Whatever the case may be, he needs to attack the basket. He needs to dissect the defense, and he needs to be more aggressive. It's as simple as that. They shot 53s. They only made 15 of them. A lot of the looks were, I think, good looks, but also OKC did a great job recovering and contesting. They're just able to fly around so well. And I think Minnesota probably will have more threes fall their way, but it's not going to matter if they're getting out rebounded or they're getting beaten when they go small. I thought the Randall and Naz Reid small lineup really did them in. I think Rudy Gobert, he's their best option this series in terms of just a matchup wise, because he can negate Chet's impact and Hartenstein's impact, and he can be more valuable on the glass. I think McDaniels has to do better attacking closeouts, and I'm interested to see how the game is officiated in game two, because a lot has been made about the officiating, about Shea's whistle, about Minnesota not being able to be as physical as OKC is on the other end. And I'm curious to see if the refs swallow their whistle in game two and they let Minnesota play a little bit more, a little bit tougher, and they're not calling those touch fouls, and see how that affects the flow of the game. I mean, they had an amazing defensive first half, but OKC in the second half went on their vintage runs, and Shea is able to take over a game in a way that very few players can take over a game. And once he gets going, it's very tough to stop him. So although the free throw conversation dominated this game, I thought OKC was going to win it regardless, and they just outplayed them in the second half specifically. Minnesota just didn't have any answers for their defense.
I thought the free throw thing was completely overplayed. I understand the frustration. I watch Shea against my team in the playoffs. I know how frustrating it is as an opposing fan base. You're right. The Timberwolves flat out got outplayed. And if Anthony Edwards would have attempted more than one shot at the rim the entire game, things could have changed. He needs to be a lot more aggressive, and understand their boxes and elbows with him. They're doing the exact same thing they do in order to guard Ja Morant. But Anthony Edwards is better than Ja Morant. He has a change of speed that Ja Morant doesn't have. And I want to see AE use that and take that step that he needs to take, because he has been phenomenal. When his three-point shot is falling, he is great. But now he's got to figure out, it doesn't have to be ways to score, but attacking and touching the paint and hitting a kick out. Like, it has to be attack, attack, attack all the time, because what I saw from Minnesota was a young team's mindset. It was, oh, they're getting all the calls, we're not, so what is the point of driving anyways? You cannot look at it like that. You have to control what you can control. And what you can control is putting pressure on the referee, putting pressure on the Thunder to make the ref make that call, or make the Thunder collapse so you can get a wide open kick out three and keep Julius Randle rolling on that flow he was in the first half. You can't just throw your hands up and be like, well, Shea's getting the whistle tonight and we're not. You're playing in Oklahoma City. What do you expect? It's the number one seed. You're going to have to do things that are unordinary and extraordinary to win in OKC, and it cannot be put in the ref's hands.
I agree. Minnesota has to take game two, because going down 2 on the series, I think for the most part, is a death sentence. And I think Minnesota can win. They match up with OKC very well. They have the defenders, and they have to stop being so visibly frustrated with the whistle. Mm-hmm. It kind of got annoying watching them and how demoralized they got once OKC got a call. And Minnesota in the regular season, they're one of the most foul-prone teams in the league. That's just who they are. They're physical. They foul a lot. And this is a series where you have someone on the opposite end that's going to take advantage of that. So they have to be extra disciplined in this series to make sure they don't foul, and they have to hide their emotions better and just play. It doesn't matter how frustrated you are. The goal is to win the game, and that's what they have to do.
Game two is going to be a revealing factor. This comes out after game two. I think if they go in and compete to the very end, and if not win it, I think that decides the rest of the series. If they go in and just have this same woe is me attitude, I think it's going to be a long series or a short series, I should say, for the Minnesota Timberwolves. There was some Giannis trade news this week. Obviously, Monday, it came out that he scheduled, or Milwaukee called him to schedule a meeting. We don't know what has happened in that meeting yet. It probably happened either Wednesday or Thursday. We're recording this on Thursday. Nothing has came out from that meeting. But what has came out is leaked video of him at a San Francisco hotel. And Giannis has revealed the reason he actually went to San Francisco, but it had nothing to do with the Warriors. Joel, before we talk about why he was there was also a report that came out from NBC that talked about the Houston Rockets, who is right now the number one contender to go get Giannis. It said that they were willing to give up Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith, and a multitude of picks from Brooklyn, Phoenix, and themselves. Would that be enough or too much for Giannis, in your opinion?
That would be enough. I mean, what are they giving up in that scenario? Great player and a role player and picks. I think that's enough to go get Giannis. And Alperen Şengün, as much as I love him, I think what Houston is thinking from their perspective, and I think he's taking massive leaps in his game. Defensively, offensively, he took a step back, and I think he can get better next year with a good offseason. The Giannis and Şengün fit is weird. It's just, call it what it is. It's a weird fit.
Yes.
And if you are banking on those two manning a front court with that spacing, it's hard to talk yourself into it, where maybe Jalen Green bounces back next year and is very impactful. I think he fits better next to Giannis just from a stylistic standpoint. So they probably would like to keep Jalen Green, or he just has no value. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that Şengün is the only player on that team that has real legitimate value that the Bucks are looking at and saying, yeah, that's actually a centerpiece to go get one of the three best players in the NBA.
That was what was appalling to me in this article, because in the fine print it said allegedly the Bucks are more interested in a Jalen Green base package instead of a Şengün package. And if I'm thinking about their future, I don't know if Jalen Green is worth building around, especially if Damian Lillard's coming off the Achilles injury. I would much rather have Şengün if I'm the Bucks, but right now they're kind of eyeing that Jalen Green package instead. I don't know if there's a world where they get both, but if you were the Bucks, you would be eyeing Şengün instead of Green, right?
Yeah, and I think that's probably fluff. That's probably smoke that's thrown out there.
Yep.
For the sake of it, I think Şengün is more valuable, and that is enough for Giannis, especially if you're throwing in the 10th overall pick and future picks that might become top 10 picks, maybe top 5 picks. That becomes very worth it for Milwaukee. And I don't think this is going to be a situation where Giannis is picking his spot. I know the Warriors sounds like a match made in heaven with Steph. They have no realistic trade package to go get Giannis. They have no foundational young players that they can trade to go get Giannis. It's just not going to happen. I don't see it happening. And I think the only teams that have a shot at getting Giannis are the teams that have those foundational young pieces and picks to go get him.
Exactly. And I understand the control he might have over the franchise and he can handpick whatever he wants. But we saw this with Damian Lillard. He wanted to go to Miami. Damian Lillard never wanted to be in Milwaukee, and you could tell that the first year. And he got what the Trailblazers wanted. He didn't get what he wanted. And despite Giannis being a top 3 player in the world right now, if I'm the Bucks, I'm making the best trade for me, no matter how much he has done for that city, no matter how much he has done for that franchise. It sounds harsh, but if I'm Milwaukee's GM, we have done everything he has asked us to up until this point. He has put pressure on us year after year after year, and we've made whatever trade he's wanted us to make. We fired whatever coach he has wanted us to fire, and now it's time for us to get ours. Earlier this week, the reason the Warriors thing popped off is because people had videoed him in this San Francisco hotel, and Twitter was going crazy about it. You know, possibly he's meeting with Steph Curry, he's meeting with the Golden State Warriors. That was not it at all. The real reason he was there was just for a Google event, one of his partnerships. He made a public appearance at the Google annual event. That was the only reason he was in San Francisco. And you're right, the Warriors have no chance to get him because of the pieces they have. They're not taking the Warriors package over Houston, over San Antonio, over Memphis, hell, even over Miami. Name the team It will not be, I would take a New York package over a Golden State package moving forward. Let's talk about the top 25 free agents this summer. It's not the best free agency class, but there is a lot of big names in here that do deserve some time. We're going to start at 25 and work our way up to 20. My 25 through 21 is as follows. It's Russell Westbrook, Al Horford, John Collins, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Quentin Grimes. I do have honorable mentions that did not make this list. Chris Middleton, Tyus Jones, D'Angelo Russell, Chris Paul, Luke Kennard, Gary Trent Jr., and Dennis Schroeder. You want to give me your 25 through 20 and anything that stands out there?
Your honorable mentions are who?
Chris Middleton, Tyus Jones, D'Angelo Russell, Chris Paul, Luke Kennard, Gary Trent Jr., and Dennis Schroeder.
Chris Middleton is in the honorable mentions
section? He averaged 12 points a game. He went to Washington, and we expected him to return to the old Chris Middleton, at least average 15 points. He could not even do that. He's playing on one leg right now.
The disrespect that you have for Chris Middleton is just absurd.
Stop acting like you watched it.
I can't believe it. 25 to 21. I mean, some of the guys that you listed, I mean, Chris Middleton's better than.
Quentin Grimes dropped 40 this year.
He's
Russell
good.
Westbrook, you said how impactful he was in the postseason. Chris Middleton wasn't even impactful for Washington.
Well, Washington sucks.
Marcus Smart was impactful.
Chris Middleton's better than Russell Westbrook right now. But okay, I see where you're going. I'm going to
sit here and argue 25 and 26 with you.
I'm going to respect, some of the legends that made this game, man. Al Horford, I think number 25, older center.
Right there.
Number 24, I'm going with Chris Middleton. He still has a lot to offer to a franchise, Jack, but somehow you're unable to give him his credit. Then I'm going to go with Dorian Finney-Smith. He has a player option. He probably is going to accept it. I'm going to go with Mo Wagner, who has a team option. I think he's going to stay in Orlando given his injury. And then I want to put Quentin Grimes higher because I'm much higher on him. So I'm going to go with Clint Capella at 21. I don't think he's a good defender. I don't think he's a good finisher anymore, but he just rebounds the ball, and that's all he does. So I'm not that high on that.
I had John Collins a lot lower than most at 23. He does have that player option. Bill Simmons floated out a Drew Holiday and a first rounder for John Collins for the Celtics. If I'm Utah, I would not take that. Would you?
No.
Because that first rounder is what, like 28 this year in the draft? And I'm not taking the 28th pick, Drew Holiday, for John Collins. I don't think John Collins has some demanding market, but that's not the trade I'm going to take for him.
Yeah, it does make sense for the Jazz to get Drew Holiday.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Do you want to go 20 through 15 or 20 through 10? I can start.
20 through 15, I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'll go with John Collins. He has great numbers, but his impact is just never there. I think he'd be like a solid piece. He has a player option. Probably going to accept it again, but still, I have him there. Karis LeVert is next up at number 19, I think we're at. Number 18, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he hasn't shot well these playoffs, but in theory, he's a very good defender. He can shoot the ball as well. So I'm going with him at 18. Number 17, I like Bobby Portis, small ball 5. 16, I like Ty Jerome. Pretty disappointing playoffs, but still is really good and impactful overall in the season. It's just now you kind of worry about whether or not he's going to play well in the playoffs. So I think that's a valid concern. I think his price dropped, and that's my 20 through 15.
Yeah, you're way too low on Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Ty Jerome. 20 through 15 for me. Mo Wagner, Clint Capella at 19, Karis LeVert at 18, Bobby Portis at 17, Brooke Lopez at 16. I had Kelly Oubre at 15, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a sneaky, fantastic free agent. He's going to get a lot bigger number than we expect because of the impact he's had on Minnesota. I think every contender in the NBA is going to want that guy. As far as Clint Capella, you're right. The age thing has not really been well on him. Brooke Lopez, if I'm Golden State, would you rather sign Brooke Lopez or Bobby Portis?
Bobby Portis.
Yes. And Portis and Draymond, to me, would be absolute cinema. Like them two guys on the same team, shoving around other bigs. I could not wait to see.
So number 14, I have Luke Kennard. I think he's just a sharpshooter who just offers a lot for a team from the outside. Brooke Lopez didn't make my top 25. I just think he's just washed defensively, and he's so bad on defense that I'm not even really looking at him. Like, I'd rather have Steven Adams than Brook Lopez, honestly.
For sure.
Dennis Schroeder is next at number 13. Then at number 12, I would go with Steven Adams, who is a free agent, and I think he's very impactful. Number 12, Kelly Oubre. Number 11, I'm going with Cam Thomas.
Yeah, I'm subbing out Brook Lopez for Steven Adams. He made the case on that one. 15 through 10, got Kelly Oubre at 15, Santi Aldama at 14, Nickeil Alexander-Walker 13, Ty Jerome at 12, Cam Thomas at 11. The Nickeil Alexander-Walker thing is over, like, it cannot be overstated. He needs to be a great, great sign. And Steven Adams, I think, played his way into a fantastic contract into the playoffs. What he did for the Rockets in that two big lineup was great. And the reason that series went to 7 games with the Golden State Warriors, I expect him to get a bag, and I'm definitely subbing him out for Brook Lopez.
Number 10, I'm going with Santi Aldama, shooter, but really bad defender, It's kind of hard to rank because of that.
Yeah, I'm wondering, before we continue, the Luke Kennard thing as high as he was and Santi Aldama as high as he was, this is a team that barely made the playoffs, got swept. Luke Kennard is a liability defensively. When he's on the floor, he's the pump fake king. He doesn't want to shoot threes, and he's not on the floor that often because of injury. Santi Aldama is a liability defensively and is why this Grizzlies team has lost their core values that they have. There is no toughness to this team because of guys like Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama. And Santi Aldama, there was a priority to get him paid, in mid-February, mid-March, whenever, it was leaked out by Zach Kleiman that they wanted to pay both Aldama and Jackson. But now he didn't mention Aldama's name one time in his exit interview, and I would be shocked if the Grizzlies paid him. It seems like a team that, like, Brooklyn would sign him as a movable piece. But Santi being this high, to me, is criminal, and same with Luke Kennard. Go ahead, though.
They say that oftentimes the toughness of a team is a reflection of the leader.
Had to put it in there, didn't you?
Number 10 is Santi Aldama. Number 9, I'm going Malik Beasley. Bounce back season with the Pistons, sharpshooter. Number 8, I'm going with Naz Reid. And at number 7, am I crazy for going with Jonathan Kuminga this high? He's like one of the best upside bets in this free agent class. I totally forgot about Fred VanVleet on my list. I know he had a great playoffs, but overall, I just kind of feel like, he's inefficient for the entirety of the season. He's frisky, but he's like, he's just a backup point guard to me. He's nothing more than that. And so number 7, I went with Kuminga. Number 6, Josh Giddey, having the fantastic regular season he had. We're going to see what the market is going to call for him. So that's my number. I think I'm at 5. No, I think I was at 6. Number 5 is, this is tough because it's between a couple players, but I think I'm going to settle on Quentin Grimes at number 5. I think Quentin Grimes is one of the best free agents available this class. And I think that
Quentin Grimes above Josh Giddey is absolutely absurd. That is nuts. That is nuts.
No, I think Quentin Grimes can fit a role better. He can shoot better, and I trust that he could play in the playoffs better than Josh Giddey. It's not
fitting a role. Josh Giddey is an all-star in this league. He is a future all-star.
Okay.
Quentin Grimes is Anthony Simons, our broke version of Anthony Simons.
Quentin Grimes, I think there should be teams seriously calling for his services to be their franchise guard.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
I think Quentin Grimes is that good. I think he's a special scorer.
Yeah, coming from a New York fan that traded him away, that I understand where this is coming.
I never wanted to do that. I actually, my comp for him, I'd said that I think he could be as good as Desmond Bane, and I think that's still possible. And I don't say that because you're a Grizzlies fan. I've said that for years now.
Yes, you do. I think 3 jaw comments, and now this Desmond Bane comment.
I think Quentin Grimes can be just as good as Tyler Hero.
Oh, my God.
And I know that sounds crazy.
I'm cutting this podcast.
I'm that big of a fan of Quentin Grimes. So he's in my top 5. I think he is one of the most prized possessions this free agency class. I'm going with Miles Turner. I'm going with Kyrie. He's hurt, kind of an asterisk to it.
Can I get some of my top 10 in? God damn.
Oh, my bad. I was going to get my top 10 in. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with Harden, then Julius Randle number 2, and LeBron at 1.
Okay. Of course, Julius Randle's at 2. We'll get to that in a minute. Number 10 is Malik Beasley. 9's Jonathan Kuminga, who is a restricted free agent. I don't expect Golden State to match any of that. He couldn't get off a bench for a mediocre Golden State team before Jimmy Butler got there. There's not a lot of upside for me. There's going to be somebody who talks themselves into Kuminga, but I don't know why he was as high as he was. Naz Reid, he's got a player option. I think it's going to be impossible for Minnesota to keep both him and Randall. So it's going to be interesting what happens there. I got Fred VanVleet at 7. He has a team option there. I expect him to decline that and try to get a longer term contract. I got Miles Turner at 6, who, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, is going to get a bag because of what the Pacers have done this season. I have Josh Giddey, who's a restricted free agent, at 5. Giddey's going to scratch that and get a 9-figure deal for sure. Julius Randle is at 4 with a player option. It's going to be interesting to see what Minnesota does and where the best fit for that is. I think the best fit outside of Minnesota is in Detroit, but you can't sit here and tell me that Julius Randle right now is a better player than Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and LeBron James. That is in that order.
He's better than Harden.
3. So
Have you seen these playoffs?
We're not talking about just the playoffs. We're talking about the entire season, Joel. If you put Julius Randle on the Clippers and Harden off of the Clippers, they have the same result.
Probably, yeah.
No, we have seen Julius Randle. You've watched Julius Randle as a first option in the playoffs.
It's a long time ago. He's playing well right now.
He is playing well right now.
I think if you put Harden in the Timberwolves in place of Randle, they're worse.
That is ridiculous. Randle, okay. Next to Anthony Edwards, sure. The fit thing, whatever. I'll throw that conversation out the window. But we've seen him as a number 1 option. I think Randle, the step he has taken is that, I'm not just going to be a 25, 30 point per game guy on a bad team. I can be an upper echelon second option. Julius Randle was not better. James Harden outplayed the contract that he was on. He had a 2-year, $70 million deal he signed last summer or the summer before, and everybody thought it was crazy at the time, and he went and outplayed that this year. He was the engine for that Clippers team. No doubt had a better season than Julius Randle. Kyrie Irving, I get the injury and everything. I think that's more of an argument to me than the James Harden thing. The James Harden thing is not even an argument. Kyrie as a second option was in the NBA Finals last year. If Julius Randle can do that, I can nod my head to that argument. LeBron James is no argument.
The James Harden point is that he chokes in the playoffs, and he did it again.
We'll see. We'll see what Julius Randle does. I mean, they just lost by, 30 in game 1?
And he had 28.
Exactly.
I think teams right now are saying we'd rather have Julius Randle than James Harden.
Because of the age, maybe, but right now, ranking these guys, James Harden is a better player than Julius Randle, and it is not close.
I don't think it's not close. I think Randle has a legitimate case to be better than him right now.
Okay, a legitimate case to be better. He is not better than him. That's the point. James Harden is a better player than Julius Randle right now. Harden was phenomenal this year. Harden's All-NBA this year.
The playoffs matters, right?
Yes, it does.
Who's better in the playoffs?
They've had to play the Warriors without Steph Curry and the Lakers without even one big man on the roster. Who has guarded him?
Julius Randle, what do you mean? Draymond guarded him.
Okay.
You can say Draymond's a DPOY.
Okay, fine. Whatever you say.
Who guarded Harden? Christian Brown?
Okay, fair point. James Harden's a better player than Randle. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Okay.
By the way, it's going to be interesting to see the number Harden gets, player option there as well. Let's talk about that 2-year, $70 million deal. I would venture to say he opts out and gets an absolute
You accuse me of being a little biased and slanted over the Grizzlies, but I'm noticing a trend with you and former Knicks players. Quentin Grimes ranked in the 20s. Randle.
I had, before you put him at 7 or 6 or 5 ahead of Josh Giddey, I was fine. I was talking high of Quentin Grimes. I was making a case of having him over other guys, and you just have to, what we always talk about, what you say is not false. It's just way farther than the actual truth.
Quentin Grimes, he averaged 22 with the Sixers.
And saying you would build a franchise around him rather than Josh Giddey. So if Chicago
if I had to pick one of two, I would.
Okay. So if Chicago straight up traded Josh Giddey for Quentin Grimes, do you think Chicago fans would be happy with that?
With the way he's played, probably not. But Josh Giddey, he was so hot from 3 that he shot an unsustainable percentage from 3
Mhm.
when he was at his best. So where I don't know if that's going to be consistent. If Josh Giddey's 3-point shooting leap is real, this is a real conversation that favors Giddey.
Mhm. And this
But
would be interesting to
Quentin
see.
Grimes can really shoot, and he's actually a shooter. And I think on more teams, he could fit. Like if I'm OKC, would I rather have Giddey back or Quentin Grimes? I think I'd go Quentin Grimes.
That's fair because of the fit, but the Quentin Grimes thing to me, the 40-point games were phenomenal. He has shown he has done that, but I view what Grimes did in Philly more as, oh, that's a March game, that's a early April, performance.
That's
With
fair.
Giddy, I saw it. Yes, he had a rough start to the season, but I saw it for longer. And the shooting thing doesn't even have to say it to me. If they can surround him with shooters, I think he is an all-star caliber player that Quentin Grimes is not.
Josh Giddey, the franchise guy.
Don't make this a race thing, okay? It's not because he's white. But that is the top 25 free agents of this summer. As we go, we'll start to put these guys on teams, and as we go. But I'm excited to see what the Knicks can do Friday night. If they can respond, we'll know the results of Game 2 Thunder-Timberwolves by the time this comes out. Joel, this was a flu game for you, and you came up huge as you always do. Appreciate you taking time today, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on.